Coming up on City Scene, cooperation during a disaster is crucial. We look at how the city and other agencies work together. Then we look down the road at the I-229 corridor and what's ahead in the next few decades. Welcome to City Scene right here on CityLink, where each month we go all around the departments in the city of Sioux Falls. And today we're going to start with the Copper Lounge building collapse that happened in December. That tragedy brought together a lot of agencies in the city, individuals, community, and the businesses in that area. And to talk about the response, we have Sioux Falls Fire Rescue Chief Jim Sedaris and Regan Smith join us. Hi, guys.
Hi. Hi.
Let's go back to the day of the collapse. And what is that moment like to know that you've had this disaster happen and the training that led up to it?
Well, I think over the years the city has adopted the incident command system. We've done a lot of training, exercising, a lot of planning. We have a lot of specialized capabilities, such as that urban search and rescue. And I think that training just kind of kicks in at the time, and you just kind of go to work.
Have you had training in the past for building collapse?
I'll let Jim.
Yeah, we do. Our USAR people train in several different areas. One is building collapse. USAR, Urban Search and Rescue, looks at building collapse, underground rescue, high-rise rescue. They're pretty much the point of the spear for a lot of those unique things that do happen.
How many agencies come together, departments within the city, but then I'm assuming outside of kind of the municipal agencies, but
on this incident, obviously, police, fire were big, Sioux Falls Public Works, many divisions under there. The state of South Dakota supported us with Highway Patrol, Homeland Security, Emergency Management, Minnehaha County Law Enforcement, Emergency Management, and the Red Cross, Avera McKinnon, and then obviously the downtown businesses, downtown Sioux Falls. Just a lot of people came together, probably too many to mention.
And this is, I mean, I remember where I was when I walked into a building and was going to a meeting and they said, did you hear what happened downtown? And everyone had their phones up or their computers up and were watching it live. What element does that bring that the public can watch all of this happening as it's going on too?
Well, obviously public information is huge in this type of thing. We want to communicate with the media and with the general public. They want to know. We want to keep them safe, keep them informed as much as we can. So under that incident command system, we do have a public information officer process or function, and that was very big in this incident. A lot of focus on it, not only here in Sioux Falls, but it became a national event that day. So we've got to address those and communicate as much as we can in a timely manner. And with social media now, the game has changed, and the city has kept up with that and communicates via that. So I think everybody can know real time what's going on.
What is the mental state as rescue crews go into a situation like this?
I think the biggest thing is our firefighters throughout the department really have to control their emotions. So when they go in, they have to really get patterns to chaos, because you walk in and you're saying, holy smokes, I've never seen a three-story building collapse. So they have to really get those patterns of what's happening, figure out really quickly, prioritize all the things that need to be done, and then control those emotions. So if you look, and we didn't know, a lot of us, I didn't know that it was live time. So when you look at our people on scene, it's not a lot of running, screaming, yelling. You really have to get your emotions under control, because that's a big problem. So we teach our firefighters, it's called stress inoculation, how to work under extreme pressure, think all the time, because the lead people, the commanders or the incident commanders of those scenes, are putting people in the spots where they could be hurt. And so we have to have really cool heads, and that's part of it, is we look for that in our people. And especially as you move up in the food chain, we like to have that clear thinking under a lot of pressure.
In a day like that, I would imagine for anyone responding is extremely stressful.
Correct.
Then do you debrief after too, to talk to everybody and look at even beyond just the rescue crew specifically, but how did we respond?
Right, we do a couple things. One, we do critical incident stress debriefing. So we bring all the people in, including public works, police officers, and then we actually talk about how do you feel about how things went? More of getting some of those big issues out, not about the operation necessarily, but how things went for you personally. And we would do those on a lot of different calls. I've been through probably hundreds of those. So it's not just the big calls, because sometimes what might affect Regan might not affect me, and what might affect me might not affect Regan. So we bring everybody into those. We do those pretty much immediately after, as soon as we can. And then depending on the situation, we'll do them again 24 to 48 hours. And then after that, then we start looking at we call it the post-incident analysis. We start taking apart that call, decision by decision, layer by layer, to say, okay, not only what went really good, but what can we improve upon in the future? And then those will go into our lessons learned. And with this call, this will probably be a national lessons learned, because this just doesn't happen very often.
What would you say, for both of you, from your perspective, were the big lessons, the takeaways?
I think incident command system, it works, and we put a lot of effort in that in the last 20 years, and it paid off. I think public information is just, again, we're under the spotlight. We need to be able to address that and handle that, have systems in place. And then that the investments we've made in that urban search and rescue program definitely paid off. It's not used very often, but when we need it, we know it's there, and we have highly trained people and equipment there to handle it.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think when you look at, sometimes we talk about different things in the fire service or the life in general, and sometimes the difference between Chicken Little and a visionary can be one call. And when we were talking about urban search and rescue, a lot of people say there's not a demand for it. When are we ever going to use building collapse? But we've had people trained for it, and one of our people, Travis Tom, was a battalion chief at the time, was overseeing the pile operation. He's gone to all the schools, and you say, well, will that ever be used? That one call made all the difference. That training and background and investment of people and resources and training can pay off in a critical incident like that. So that investment, some people don't realize until you can't generate trained firefighters on the scene. That all has to happen ahead of the call, and that's critical for us.
Regan, let's also talk about that private-public partnership, because while we have public groups and public servants that are coming and responding, this business is surrounded by private businesses.
It is, and you know, it affected downtown as far as traffic. You know, we wanted to make sure the public was safe too, so we asked them to stay away for a while, and then, you know, we definitely tried to communicate again with downtown Sioux Falls, the impacted businesses, the ones that were directly impacted, or the surrounding businesses. So, you know, we worked very closely during the response, but then during that recovery period too, to make sure they understood what was safe, what was not safe, and then how can we recover, you know, as not only as a community, but as a business community too.
And they were active, I think, some of them, even in that day, supporting.
Yes, I mean, their businesses were impacted, but they were stepping up to feed and support the responders, to give us a place to warm up, or coffee, cupcakes, food, you name it. They were there. I mean, it was overwhelming, that response. It was really too much. We ended up, you know, slowing that down, but it was great. That's the kind of place we were.
And what does the response from all aspects say about where we live? What does it say about Sioux Falls?
Well, I think it says the people in Sioux Falls will come together in a crisis, and they're willing to help and donate whatever. I mean, there are people that probably lost a lot of money giving us pizzas and food and everything that we needed. It's just the generosity in a crisis it says a lot about the people of the Midwest, and in Sioux Falls in particular. We have great people. Sioux Falls is growing rapidly, but the people coming here are exceptional, and we saw that they'll pretty much really rise to any challenge, and we needed some help, and the construction people that just showed up said, hey, we can do this. It was quite amazing that everyone just came together.
Well, thank you to both of you, and to the folks that you all work with for their response, and of course always thinking of the families that were involved and those Ethan McMahon's family and Emily Fodness, and for all that they went through. But so thankful for the response that you guys have had and the cooperation that's been built. And when it comes to cooperation, the I-229 corridor is going to be seeing some changes in the next 20 to 30 years. Let's take a look at what those changes could be as part of the I-229 corridor study. Shannon.
Well, Happy New Year, Sioux Falls. We are here today to talk about a very exciting study that we've been doing, Interstate 229, from Interstate 90 down to Interstate 29. We welcome to the show Jason Genstead from HDR. Jason, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've talked to you before about this very exciting project, and for our viewers who aren't up to speed yet, could you give us a brief overview of what the corridor study was specifically meant to do?
Sure. That's when we first started working on the corridor study, and as Shannon indicated, we were really looking from about the Solberg Avenue overpass to the 60th Street North overpass, and really the goal was, as we look over 20 years, we have this important corridor that's been serving Sioux Falls very well for a long time. And so how do we look 20 years, 30 years in the future and make sure that we are planning for improvements that are necessary? And so really what our goal was to identify improvements and identify a cost for them. And so as the study wraps up, we have a good stopping point where all of the interchanges and the main line, we have some thoughts of what should be done over the next 30 years. And now it's really take our estimates for making these improvements and start working between the city and DOT and get them into a plan, a programming plan to implement them. And as we indicated recently at our public meeting, it's not a short-term thing. These aren't going to all be happening next year, the following year. With the magnitude of improvements that we have, it is really a long-term plan.
So bring us back to when Interstate 229 was originally, I guess, planned in construction. Do you remember what time frame was that?
Yeah, I mean, you have the interstate itself that was in place in the 60s, and then we had the variety of interchanges that kind of connected over time. And so we had interchanges that sprang up early after the interstate was constructed all the way till the 90s. And so Louise Avenue was one of the later ones, and Benson Road that were, we think that they've always been there, and they've only been there for 20 some years, and so all the land use is filled in around them that really shows how useful they have been.
So one of our oldest interchanges is at 26th Street and 229. And just remind our viewers what's going to happen at 26th Street.
Sure. And so the 26th Street interchange was identified for improvements, and really we did a pretty large study that concluded right at the beginning of this overall master plan for I-229, and just understanding the capacity and congestion concerns that we had there. That got kind of put on the fast track, and now we are identifying interchange improvements to actually be constructed in that 2019-2020 time frame, and we'll have interchange improvements where some of the ramps get realigned, take out some of the maybe what we thought were deficiencies, worked well for a long time, but due to the amount of traffic that's going through there, we need to make some improvements. The other unique thing about that project is as we get over to Southeastern Avenue, we're implementing the railroad overpass and elevating that intersection to take away some of the concerns with just the delay due to the trains, safety, and just promoting a larger intersection at Southeastern to move traffic.
So that was actually basically our first step of the 229 corridor.
It was,
study.
and as part of our tiered improvements, that would be our tier 1 improvement from the corridor study is to complete the 26th Street interchange or exit 5 interchange project, and then really move up and down the line from there.
What would be the next couple of interchanges that we would focus on after 26th Street?
That's a really good question. We had a lot of good reasoning for the interchange, I guess, tiering that we completed. And so when we look ahead, we have Benson Road, 10th Street, and Minnesota Avenue, which are all needing some capacity improvements. We have certainly periods during those peak hours of the day where we have congestion, but as you look at each interchange, each one has something very different that we're trying to overcome. And at Benson Road, we have this huge industrial and commercial traffic loading in the AM and PM peak hours. Over a course of 15-20 minutes, we have a large amount of traffic that goes through there that causes this delay. Now at Benson Road, our concern is as we develop to the east, we're not going to be able to handle the volume because we
Right.
can't give all of that time at the signals along the corridor to that traffic that's there now. So we add additional traffic. We see that being a problem at 10th Street. We've identified improvements there around the interchange over to Cleveland Avenue.
So that's just like 26th Street. There's just a lot of congestion that we have to deal with.
A lot of congestion,
Yep.
and so when we look at the time frame for construction, if we looked at the difference between 10th or Benson, why we would do one and the other, it might equate to what we learn on development planning. When we look at 10th Street, we have a lot more acquisitions that we need to look at making, so that might take us longer, so it might make sense to move forward with Benson because that's, from the acquisitions and right-of-way standpoint, a much simpler project.
So that'll probably be how we approach every interchange then, kind of, I mean, we have our tier 2s after 26th Street, but then determine which one could we get the biggest bang for our buck, I guess.
Absolutely, and every 5 years we look at traffic projections, and since this is a long-term model, we're going to be getting back into that model and saying, well, maybe we learned something over the next 5 years that would, move one ahead of the other.
So what's our total volume or total cost of all of the projected interchange improvements?
Sure, and so when we look at the overall improvements of Interstate 229, and this would be for maintenance projects, rehabilitations. One project that we didn't specifically talk about was the 60th Street North Bridge. At some point that's going to have to be reconstructed, and that's just part of the overall maintenance plan along the corridor. But the order of magnitude is around $280 million is what was estimated, from the study, which is significant in itself. But when we start looking at interchange improvements, and we have for several years, it's not uncommon for them to be 15 to 25 to 30 million dollars.
So just bringing us back to 26 and 229, those improvements I think were 25 to 30 million, correct?
Yeah. I think when we're all done with some of the park enhancements that we have to make, we're right at that 30 million mark.
So from the city and the DOT standpoint, I know we've been having meetings internally and with the public, just trying to identify how are we going to fund all of these improvements. And I'm sure the citizens had the same, and the government had the same challenges back when they originally planned 229.
Yeah.
And so it's really, 229 has really evolved and really helped the citizens get in around the city of Sioux Falls.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been vital to making those crosstown connections. When they envisioned Interstate 229 to go in, they maybe thought it would be more of a commerce route that would provide some additional ways for commercial traffic to get in and serve these areas and get back out on the interstate. But what has happened over time is it does that very well, but it also allows for commuters to, maybe a little quicker way to work because it's so directional to all of our north-south arterials in Sioux Falls. So my last question then is just, can you explain to our viewers or the connection then between the need for the improvements on 229 in addition to finishing Highway 100? Yeah, absolutely. And so when we look at growth in our community, we have, in terms of traffic modeling, the improvements that we've identified on Interstate 229 are assuming that we're going to have some level of growth. The impacts and the implementation of the South Dakota 100 corridor are actually also included in that same model. And so a few years back when the city opened up a large portion of that area to the east with the east side sanitary sewer basins, it allowed for development to take place. And so that South Dakota 100 corridor will serve commercial traffic just due to its nature and its connectivity with I-29 and I-90. But we're already looking at that, having capacity constraints 30, 40 years down the road. And so I would anticipate 20 years from now, we'll be looking at another study that would look at maybe our next roadway that's going to get constructed. And so it's just the growth of the cities and how we have to manage traffic. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for your time today. Is there anything that you want to remind our viewers? Oh, how about the website? Sure. After our recent public meeting, we did put everything on the website. And so all of the viewers can see the current information at www.i229study.com. They can watch the video from the presentation, or they can simply go to their interchange location and look at the options that kind of remain to go forward. And you'll notice we didn't narrow it down to one. We really narrowed it down to a couple options. So when we get into the next studies, the interchange justification studies and the environmental documents, that's kind of the starting point, and then we'll go from there. So we still have a lot of work to do. Yeah, it's to ensure that these public dollars are being spent correctly. We have a lot of studies that we need to do, but at the end of the day, they're good. They do identify the right solution, and I think it's beneficial to go through that process.
Well, great. Thanks so much for your time
Yep.
today. Sioux Falls, you still have wonderful opportunities to get involved and help us plan where the City of Sioux Falls is going for Interstate 229. So keep in touch with the city, and we look forward to having some public meetings with you in the future. Thanks so much for watching.
After the break, a new year, a new you. Making big changes in your lifestyle can start with little steps. We'll tell you how.
All around town, from stores to playgrounds, babies are on the move. And there are diseases that are on the move too. And some of these spread easily. To best protect him from 14 serious diseases by the time he turns 2 years old, vaccinate him according to the recommended schedule, so he can go on about his business and you can have peace of mind. For more reasons to vaccinate, talk to your child's doctor or go to cdc.gov/vaccines.
In an emergency, seconds can save lives. That's why Sioux Falls Fire Rescue has partnered with Pulse Point Foundation to bring you an innovative app that can alert CPR-trained citizens by smartphone of a sudden cardiac arrest near them. It provides the location of the victim as well as the nearest automatic external defibrillator. To learn more, log on to our webpage or download the app today.
Welcome back. It's 2017, and a new year often means looking at ways to be a new you. Making healthy lifestyle changes, though, doesn't have to mean completely overhauling your life. It can start with some really simple steps. Mary Michaels tells us how.
Hi, and welcome to City Scene. I'm Mary Michaels with the Sioux Falls Health Department and Live Well Sioux Falls, and with me today is Chrissy Meyer from the American Heart Association. Welcome, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
Well, you know, Chrissy, with the new year, everyone kind of has resolutions on their mind. They're thinking about, oh, I need to lose weight or I need to exercise more. But it seems like with resolutions, we don't get much past February and we've already kind of done ourselves in. So what is it about resolutions and why is it so hard?
You know, I think the big thing is that we always have the same kind of goals every year. We want to lose weight or, you know, whatever that is. And sometimes those goals are realistic and sometimes they're not so much. And so maybe it makes more sense, instead of making a resolution to completely change your entire life in one choice, then maybe we pick smaller things and try to find smaller ways that we can make a difference in our health.
I think that's a great idea. It's something that you know you can achieve, and then ultimately that will get you to that long-term goal. So if it's losing weight, maybe it's just eating a few more fruits and vegetables each day, and over time you're going to see the results of that work.
Exactly. And you know, maybe every week you pick one thing to work on that week. So maybe it's adding a little bit of color to your plate at every meal and picking a new fruit or vegetable to add. Or maybe it's making it a goal that I'm going to make it to the gym 5 times this week. I'm going to do that this week. But whatever it is, pick something and work on it for a little while until it becomes a habit. And then once it's a habit, it becomes part of your lifestyle.
So when we think about our overall health and we think about what are maybe those few key areas that people could set some goals in. So we know that one of them obviously could be thinking about what we're eating, and we know that eating more fruits and vegetables is something that our adults in the Sioux Falls area have kind of struggled with. We haven't had the best rates compared to other cities with our fruit and vegetable consumption. So that might be add one more fruit or add one more vegetable each day to your diet. What are some of the other little simple steps that people could take to look at some healthy changes?
You know, another thing would be kind of looking at physical activity in ways that you can simply add physical activity to your day. Maybe that's, I know it's hard this time of year, but maybe it's just going for a walk after dinner and making that your goal, that every night I'm going to go for a walk after dinner, or walking the dog. Or maybe finding some other simple things that you can do to just tweak your routine just a little bit in a healthier direction.
So in every bit of activity activity helps, right? Now, what's the recommended amount of activity that people should be getting?
You know, we say 150 minutes a week, and you can break that into larger sessions or smaller ones, 10 minutes at a time, but 150 minutes of moderate activity a week.
Okay, so we know we need to eat better. We need to move more.
Yep.
Probably not everyone is the greatest about wanting to go see their doctor.
Yeah.
But the preventive medicine really makes a big difference.
Yep.
So what are some of the things that people should do? What are the numbers that people should know, and maybe take that step and make that call and set up a checkup?
Great question. We really like to focus on 5 key numbers, and those 5 numbers are your overall total cholesterol, your HDL cholesterol, your blood glucose, your BMI, which is your body mass index, and also your blood pressure. And so most of the time, if you go to the doctor, you can get those done in a quick and simple screening, and it doesn't really take very long. So if you just set an appointment to go to your doctor, preventative exam, and know those 5 numbers, you should be good to go.
And I know it can be a little scary, but it's always better to know those numbers and take that positive step than to have to deal with some of the serious impacts like a heart attack or other issues later on.
Right, and a lot of the times, depending on, have that conversation with your doctor, but sometimes if you're catching those things early enough, you can modify your lifestyle slightly to address those issues with diet or lifestyle changes as opposed to having to get medication or something else. So catching them early is key to prevention.
Yeah. And then there's other little things like we know that we need to drink more water and we need to make sure we're getting our sleep. So there's lots of things that people can do. And what kind of resources does the Heart Association have that can help people?
I always tell people heart.org is our website, and you can find information on every single thing we've discussed there, along with a lot of other kinds of lifestyle things, stress management, how to quit smoking, how to sleep more, all of those kinds of topics right there at heart.org.
Great one about quitting smoking. That's always kind of a common resolution, I think. And we're really lucky in South Dakota. We have one of the top quit lines in the country. So people can dial 1-866-SD-QUITS and get that help and that support. And that really is a factor in so many other health issues. So
absolutely.
Heart.org, the quit line. Obviously, we have livewellsiouxfalls.org where there's recipes and a calendar of events. So if you've gotten the park guide, all of these activities are on our calendar of events. And those are great resources. And you're on social media, I assume?
Yes, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We always post every day, and we post healthy recipes, ways to stay healthy through activity, and other kinds of ideas and options that you can take advantage of.
Well, Christy, thanks so much for joining me today. Visit heart.org or livewellsiouxfalls.org to find all kinds of resources on healthy eating, exercise, links to help you quit smoking, what numbers to know at the doctor, all the ways that you can make your 2017 the happiest, healthiest year it can be. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Mary. Now I need to go back and make sure I'm hitting all of those resolutions I had made on January 1st. As for us here at City Scene, we will resolve to see you back here next month. Of course, if you missed anything, all you need to do is head over to siouxfalls.org or, of course, check us out on YouTube. And until then, we'll see you back here next month.